Okay, so we're doing a little bit of a different video this week because I'm going to figure out how to draw the line between work-related social media and personal preference, joyful social media, if that makes any sense. Anywho, what I'm trying to say is I can't figure out how to not work. Even when I'm not working, the social media on my phone is all work-related, and I got sick of that. And it felt like it wasn't good for my mental health. It also felt like I was just getting very distracted throughout the week when I was supposed to be working by social media, because in my brain I was like, well, it's work related, so scrolling through social media is working, even though it was cutting down my productivity. So I'm doing this little experiment where I'm deleting a lot of social media apps off of my phone, and the only ones that I'm allowed to keep on my phone cannot be work related. And on top of that, I also am just challenging myself to not touch social media, or at least work-related social media, after work hours or before work hours. So let's jump into it. So let's talk about what's gonna happen. So basically, I'm gonna delete every form of social media I shared, every form of work social media from my phone. So my phone will now be strictly for personal purposes only. And then this is going to be only for work stuff. Actually, that's a lie. I'm bound to put something non-work related on here because, let's face it, this has a bigger screen. And when it comes to watching Netflix on my phone versus the iPad, probably gonna be the iPad. But you get the idea. So I'm going to try my best to, once I have everything downloaded onto the iPad, put my phone as far away as possible during the workday, but the iPad is going to be what I use for work. Now, I just got this yesterday, so it's still very much generic as heck. But as you can see, I also have my Apple Pencil, because this is not just for social media, this is for mainly graphic design. So I bought this because I currently have a drawing pad that's hooked up to my computer. This is the drawing pad I use in Photoshop, and I love it. I use it for cover design all the time when I really want to get precise about something. But as much as I love Photoshop, I really want to delve into Procreate, and Procreate is like an Apple product exclusive thing. You can get Procreate on your phone, but that's a tiny little drawing area. And I also wanted to use the Apple Pencil, and you can't use the Apple Pencil on your phone, as far as I'm aware. Honestly, I never looked that up, so I could be wrong. But it's just nice to have the bigger screen to use Procreate, because the cover, I will reveal that the cover for Project Road Trip is going to be completely illustrated. By yours truly, hopefully. Assuming this goes well, it's going to be illustrated by me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first install everything onto my iPad, log into everything, make sure that everything that I need is on my iPad, and then I'm going to go onto my iPhone and delete everything off of my phone that is work related. This is so during the work week I can mainly use my iPad, and then on the weekends the goal is that the iPad does not get touched at all unless I want to use Procreate for fun. That's the only time I'm allowed to touch the iPad. And then on the weekends the goal is to just keep myself work free so I can use my phone on the weekend, but not the iPad. I'm hoping this will keep me more productive, that I'm not getting as distracted by social media throughout the day, but we will see what happens.
It never rains in California. The sun is always shining bright. People are smiling, making plans, hiding behind their shades, and you're doing the same. No rain, no flowers, growing where you're at. Heart is fire, but baby, I bet you're cold without me. Even when it's 90 degrees. Without me, I bet that you can get any sleep in that bed, lying awake. 'Cause I'm not there beside you, keeping you warm at night. No, I bet you're cold. You're so damn cold. It never rains in California. The sun is always shining bright. But if the sky would open up, you're staying home, you don't get out. You always used to love the rain, but LA changed you. No rain, no flowers, nothing's growing where you're at. Heart is fire, but baby, I bet you're cold without me. Even when it's 90 degrees.
Okay, so I've had my iPad for a little over a week now, and I've made it a habit to have a new morning routine, which is wake up, read while eating breakfast, and then after that, I dedicate an hour to my iPad where I draw something different every single day. I've been taking Skillshare classes, and I'm loving the progress I'm making, I have to say.
You're so damn cold. No flowers, nothing's growing where you're at. Heart is fire, but baby, I bet you're cold without me. Even when it's 90 degrees. Without me, I bet that you can get any sleep in that bed, lying awake. 'Cause I'm not there beside you, keeping you warm at night. No, I bet you're cold. You're so damn cold. It never rains in California.
There is a life I lead in this city, hurrying to cup my tea. I can take what I need to get by. It doesn't make it easy. The other piece of my heart moves slow, somewhere in the great unknown. When I return from the afterglow, will you carry me like I am whole again? Wait, hold on, put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone. Wait, hold on, put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone. If I could take you back to my youth and show you what I wish I knew, my will is strong with a place to lean. In the moment I hung desperately, the other ring on my wrist is gold, pairing with the light it holds. When I return from my skin and bones, I'm remembering the words you told me.
I think it's been about like 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't really been keeping track, but it's been 2 or 3 weeks of me using my iPad for business related social media stuff and removing all business related stuff off of my phone, and it's been pretty good. So some things that I've noticed, first of all, is that I'm not on social media early in the morning and I'm not on social media later towards night, at least not business related. Now, in the morning, I used to wake up and check my Instagram right away before I even got out of bed. I don't do that now. I just cuddle with my puppy. And I don't end up on Instagram until I think it's about like 9:30 in the morning, which is when I like officially start my day, where I make my posts on social media, I do all the business related stuff, respond to stuff, and then after I've got my social media out of the way, then I truly start my day by either writing or working on client stuff, that sort of thing. So that's been great. And then when it comes to what I do on social media in the afternoon, I have tried really hard to stay off of it completely, or if I'm on it, it's not business related, it's just my personal social media that I get sucked into, which is perfectly fine by me. And I've also stayed off of my business social media more or less during the weekends. I do occasionally post to my stories on the weekends, but it's something that I'm trying to step away from. One of the little bothersome things is that, like, especially if someone tags me on an Instagram story over the weekend and I'm trying not to check on the weekends, by the time I check it on Monday, it's expired and I have no idea what people tagged me in. But you know what? It's a small price to pay because frankly, I do feel like this is better for my productivity and also better for my mental health. There was a little bit of aggravation where I used my business, my Mandi Lynn Writes Instagram account to talk to friends in like PMs and all that. And at first it was a little odd because I was like, oh shoot, now I can't like talk to my friends. But the fact of the matter is, if my friends really want to reach me, they either have my phone number or they can message me on Facebook, or there's just a million different ways to talk to me besides Instagram. So if it's that important, they know where to find me. One struggle I had right away is that my personal Instagram, which is actually an Instagram account I don't use a whole lot, but it's an Instagram account that I've curated to be like completely non-work related, which means that the accounts I follow are not book or writing related, none of that. It's all, mostly for the most part, either dogs or cats or hiking, if I'm being completely honest. Or I have like a few like travel vloggers that I love to follow on Instagram. That's all it is. So when I first switched to my old Instagram account, that's my personal Instagram account, I was really bored with the feed there. So I kind of had to like refollow some people to make that feed more interesting. But here is what I noticed what happened is Instagram on an iPad is not designed for iPads, so it's very ugly. So scrolling through Instagram on an iPad wasn't something that happened a lot. So I wasn't finding myself during the work week getting sucked into Instagram and getting distracted, because frankly the only time I was on Instagram on my iPad was usually to post and to respond to comments and all of that jazz. I didn't do a whole lot of scrolling. And I still do scrolling on my phone, but it's not nearly as much because I've just, like, before I would only scroll out of boredom, and now it's like I broke a habit of grabbing my phone to solve a boredom problem. Granted, I still do that. The main culprits now being like Facebook and Pinterest. Facebook, I'm a part of like a few different hiking groups and a few different like Australian Shepherd groups where we all talk about training our dogs and stuff like that. So Facebook is like a very stress-free zone for me right now whenever I go to the groups sections, whereas like Instagram is starting to feel like work. And so as long as I'm stress-free, that's all that matters. But I have noticed there are some days where certain content is going on in the world and I'm just like, okay, today's a no social media sort of day. And it feels that much easier to completely turn it all off because I've kind of already half done that by mostly removing it off of my phone. Now I will say all of my Instagram accounts are still logged onto my phone. And the reason being is that when I create Instagram Reels or TikToks, I usually film with my phone because you can film with an iPad, but it's a little clunky. Usually, like, I like to record whatever's on my iPad, so like when I draw on Procreate, I can replay the drawing on my iPad, and then I record the screen of my iPad with my phone, if that makes any sense. So basically, the only time I used my phone for business stuff was when I was filming and posting an Instagram Reel or a TikTok, which is fine by me. And I found the hack because I did notice at first when I still had all the accounts logged onto my phone, I would occasionally get sucked into scrolling through Instagram on my phone. But the way I remedied that is that I made sure that before I exited Instagram, I made sure I went back to my personal account. That way, like, if I ever just mindlessly tapped on the Instagram icon, it was my personal account. And like I said, my personal account is slightly more boring, and I follow less people, like significantly less people, so there's not as much to look at. So I scroll through, I get bored, and I exit out of Instagram, and I'm not sucked in. It's a miracle. Now, one thing I did do was that I went to like the screen time report that your phone does, and I compared my screen time. Now, before I got my iPad, according to the screen time report, I was using Instagram for almost 5 hours, to be exact, 4 hours and 54 minutes, which is excessive. But then after I got the iPad, I used it for 2 hours and 53 minutes, and then 2 hours and 56 minutes. Now, ideally, I would like to use Instagram still less than that, but I'm more or less okay with those numbers. I feel much better about my social media usage now, about my ability to control when I'm working and when I'm not working, which was the ultimate goal of this video. Now, I will say I don't recommend you buying an iPad just for the sake of being able to do something like this. That's stupid. This iPad was bought for the purpose of learning how to illustrate better. And then since I had it, I was like, I'm gonna do this little experiment where I take business social media off of my phone, which worked out really well for me. And if you want to do something similar, but you don't want to buy an iPad because, you know, it's expensive and because you're not an illustrator, then you could do something like take an old iPhone, an old iPod, anything that is like a deactivated phone but can still connect to the internet. That's what you can do, and you can put your social media on those devices rather than your phone that you carry with you everywhere. Like if you're a business owner and you want a phone that's dedicated to your business, instead of buying a brand new phone, use an old phone that is deactivated, or just something that doesn't require you to get an additional cell phone bill every month. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely have like just a box full of old phones, whether they be broken or just like out of date. I've stocked up on them. But if you have phones sitting around like that, you can use that as your social media device, and you can kind of give yourself dedicated times of like, I'm allowed to use this device for an hour today or 2 hours or whatever. Anything to kind of help limit you. And what you will notice is that once you get into the habit of not being on social media again, it'll be much easier. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week.